architecture in the built environment, and especially in sustainable architecture. So 20 years ago, I wrote my latest book. There's no new books after that. Ecology, it's about ecology, man and the environment, where I tried in 10 chapters to illuminate different aspects of ecological life and architecture. Within this book also developed this simplified approach to a sustainable community, which I called the community on three sustainable pillars, of which the first one, this unfortunately it's in Finnish, yes, it's the place, the built environment, natural environment. The second pillar is energy and materia, and the third one is ourselves. So today I'm focusing on the first one, especially talking about the built environment and its relation to the natural environment. The spirit of a space can be like this. Very simple, a pathway in the forest, natural light infiltrating through the leaves of the trees. It reminds me very much of the beautiful painting we have been seeing of a Lithuanian painter. The light coming to a certain place and creating a very strong spirit. I don't know whether you can create a space in a more simple way or even in a more beautiful way. Perhaps not. A place can be the area in the shade of a big tree, like here in a village in southern France, actually pilgrim village in southern France. One tree in the middle of the village, in the middle of the square, creating a space which is very attractive because it's in the shadow, but it's a beautiful space as well. So the spirit is quite similar to the one we have seen in the picture before. You could also call it architecture without architects. This is architecture with architects. A huge square in the city of Montpellier, in the very heart of a very beautiful city. Very important place because all streets, all ways lead to Rome, you say. In Montpellier, it's to this place which is called La Place de la Comédie. Our place in a small town where a market takes place every Friday morning. And it's not only the sellers and the buyers, and the dialogues, and all the things, the beautiful things which are on sale. It also invites also musicians and dancing groups, all kinds of activities. Because the people are there, the atmosphere is there, the spirit is there. Like this group of gypsies playing wonderful gypsy music, or the giants arriving at the marketplace and giving a performance. Or it can be a calm place, a beautiful one, as Vincent van Gogh has captured in one of his famous paintings. It's the place of the health house, what's it called? Le Jardin de la Maison de la Santé in Arles. And here, how it is in reality nowadays. I put attention to the term. It's not the house of the sick people, it's not even a hospital, it's the house of the health, of the healthy people, or the people who want to stay at good health and prolong their life, as we have heard in one of our intelligent presentations this morning. A space can be very dynamic also. It's not necessarily a place where you stay. It's a place where you move forward towards a goal, like towards this beautiful mansion house in the back. I think streets which are lined by trees are the most beautiful streets in the world. And do you know who actually invented these streets all over France? Do you know who it was? You don't know. It was Napoleon. Because he wanted to provide shade for his troops to make it from one place to the other and to arrive alive. Or it can be like this world-famous bridge and aqueduct in southern France, which not only leads the troops or the people from one side to the other of the river, it also was the arrangement to bring water about 70 kilometers from one place higher up, from a well higher up, to the city of Nîmes. Or it can be a motorway. You would not think of a motorway looking at this beautiful structure in the fog. You hardly can see it. It's the motorway leading from Spain, from Barcelona, to Paris, running over the valley at the city of Millau. It is the work of Norman Foster. I think it's a beautiful piece of architecture in modern time. Basically, I think you can compare it to the work done by the Romans 2,000 years ago. Very elegant, high up in the air. The pilates are even higher than the Eiffel Tower. And in the evening light, it appears like a music instrument. Or the space can be something like that, very narrow, very elaborate, with its marble steps here in the city of Montpellier, a place which is inviting to walk through, to have a chat, to stand for a while, to have a cup of coffee, to buy some books. Or quite another space, which you all know, these famous streets in San Francisco, running all the way straight up the hill and descend at the other side. It seems like running right into the ocean. A place can also be like a piece of nature. It's all built. That's Sveaborg in Finland. It's not used as habitats, has never been used as habitats, but it very well, you could imagine, it could have been habitats. It could have been an eco-village, quite in balance with nature. Actually was used for military purposes, unfortunately. And the relationship between the built environment and the natural environment is very nicely presented at Vitresk, which was the place of the three famous Finnish architects, Eliel Saarinen, Armas Lindgren, and what was the third one? You see it very nicely here in the house of Eliel, former house of Eliel Saarinen, which somehow grows like out of the natural setting. But it can be something quite different as well. It's another approach. It can be a nice piece of architecture, like a beautiful box introduced into the landscape. It was called the international style. Such pieces you could put basically everywhere, they thought. I think it's not a very good idea, actually. Even very good architects are behind this work. I think I truly think that the environment and the houses or parks or streets or whatever, they are an entirety which should be in balance, one support the other, and as a result the houses should look differently wherever they are. Like for instance here in a small village in Switzerland up in the mountains, where the architect von Thor introduced a small chapel in the background, created a beautiful space with quite a timeless appearance in the inside. But in the outside really is a part of the wooden-built village. Or the space can be an old factory, which is not needed anymore, like this example in the city of Zurich, and huge new developments built a frame, but the hall, the industrial hall, is preserved and serves quite some other purposes. You could call it circular economy. Something which has served something now is put in another use and serves in another way and creates a new environment, but it's basically in the old environment. I think talking about the problems of nowadays, this comes very close to the clue. We should much more use what we have already. Or a nice setup in Hämeenlinna in Finland, where an industrial complex out of use nowadays has been transformed into a cultural center where new elements and old elements work very nicely together, one supporting the other one. Or this very famous example in Nîmes in southern France, where Norman Foster introduced a new culture center quite opposite to Maison Carrée, which has been built by the Romans 2,000 years ago. And they work perfectly together, have a beautiful dialogue with each other, creating a space for people in between. And the very sad example, that's how many of our suburbs, not only in Finland, also in Sweden, also in Germany, look like. And our office won at the time a competition to upgrade these buildings. And that's how they look today, at least some of them. They are not all looking the same. Creating a new spirit, you could say. Giving new hope to the people. They are not just the forgotten people, the poor people, the people who don't get any work. They are living now in these structures where they can invite happily somebody to visit them in their apartment, and they can be proud of it. And they can make a new start. That's at least what we hope, that good architecture could support the people and giving them a new start by changing the spirit. Now, to round up, I'll give you a few examples of structures, small structures, which we have designed in our office throughout the last 30 years, just to give you a feeling and understanding of what the spirit of the houses and the environment together could be. There's actually a section of my own house built into the slope. There's many things which would be interesting to explain, but we don't have the time right now. I think the most important thing is the house is a very small house towards the north, protects itself entirely, and it opens up towards the sun. And within the house we have a warm area and we have a non-heated area which gets its heat on the south side by the sun and on the north side by the heat losses of the warmed up spaces. That's how it looks in summertime, that's how it looks in wintertime. It's quite big, but in relative uses, it's always this wide angle pictures. It makes the house too big. It's in relative, it's smaller. But it is big towards the sun because it wants to capture the sunlight and the energy given by the sun. And it's very low, it's almost non-existing towards the north, giving room for a meadow. Do you call it meadow? A natural grassland meadow to grow on the roof with a lot of species, and the species get even, from one year to the other, get more and more and more. Biodiversity, I think you brought up the very important term. In the inside looks like this. It's my architecture, but it's also the architecture, quite much the architecture of my master, Alvarado, from whom I learned quite a lot while working in his office. Greenhouse. Another little structure, which is important, interesting, because it brings together the existing about 100-year-old house, and it got a new addition with all the comfort which you require in nowadays life, which you didn't have before, and bringing the two elements together, making one, which is hopefully much better than the situation before. The entrance to the building. It got also a tower, since it is at the shore, and the owner wanted to have a place where he could meditate and look around over the sea, what's going on. Another structure on a far-out island in the Finnish archipelago. Here the client wanted to have a little house, a little shelter, mainly shelter, where he could spend some days during summertime, mainly. And the interesting thing was he didn't want to do, or I told him, do not do any harm to the natural environment. So the whole house was built somewhere else. It was brought to the place. It was brought up by a tractor, and it was built up in 1 week. It stands on its toes, as we say, hardly touches the ground. So it's not destructive in any way, but it gives the shelter, it gives the place to stay when it's stormy outside, when it's rainy outside, and to go out when the sun is shining and you want to catch some fish. Or this example, perhaps it's the one which demonstrates this track of ideas most cleanly. It's also a house at the shore, beautiful nature, beautiful view, the sea some 50 meters lower, and the house opens, of course, as all our houses, towards the sun, but it also strives for giving a maximum of accessibility towards the natural environment and doing as little harm as possible to it. So you could say the building and the natural environment are not two different things. It's one thing. It's the same thing. And it just supports human beings, give protection against the rain, against the snow, against the ice, but at the same time also on everyday life, it gives the possibility to have access to what is really essential. And what is essential is, of course, its nature. Or this structure, in a similar way, quite many of our houses are at the shore. Finland is a very happy position that we have still a lot of access to the sea, to the water, not only in the countryside, also within the city of Helsinki. All this structure which we built up in the north for a building company, actually, and the the boss of the building company, who is very good in, how you call it, orientation type of thing, running around with the compass and reading the contours and the vegetation and all that. So together we found a place which was, it basically was a round place, a flat place, and we created the building accordingly to this place. It's a rondo, again with a very soft hand, not touching the natural surrounding hardly, but let the building and the vegetation work together in a harmonious way. And to round up, a few pictures about the ecological village which we designed in the southwest of Finland. I presented actually a few pictures at the last session in Latvia. It's the ecological village which was organized and financed and by a group of women, the Marta Förening in Brumave. We made a careful investigation on the existing buildings with the church and its bell tower of the 16th century, with the school, the gas station and the only shop in the village, and some typical houses, and on this space developed the village, which was built around on a lot without buildings at the time, around a little hill with rich vegetation. So that's the appearance of the village. It's more urban, it's straightforward. Somehow it wants to be a natural continuation of the existing village with an architecture which somehow feels natural at the place. So we are not creating a new spirit, we are continuing the spirit of the existing village with an inviting entrance leading up on the upper floor, and tells all the time where you are, what's important at the place. It's the vicinity to the sea. And the place where the energy is produced by wood and by solar energy and distributed throughout the village. At the same time, we made some sort of an architectural statement. It's an important place. It's not only a heat plant, it also has its special character. And giving the people a possibility not only to live in these houses, but to produce also quite a part of the food by themselves, using the nutritions which have been taken out of the water by a biological cleaning plant. The spirit of the place. I think it's very important in architecture in general, and especially in ecological architecture. Thank you for keeping fastened to your seatbelts.